3 spine-chilling true home invasion cases, unexplained terrors revealed in haunted houses. Sarah was lost in the comforting routine of her small Midwestern town, the mundane vibe of nearby diners and friendly faces alike. However, once the sun set, an unsettling chill trickled down her spine like a sinister whisper echoing through the stillness of her modest home. There was something wrong, something lurking beyond the glow of the streetlights, waiting to pounce. She brushed aside her son Jack's tales of monsters, mumbling to herself that it was just his imagination. But as she tucked him into his bed adorned with superhero sheets, her senses screamed otherwise. When she spotted strange footprints pressed into the soft earth of their yard, fear spiked through her. Disregarding them as mere tricks of the mind, shadows outside began to shift, igniting a flicker of panic. Jack, oblivious to her unease, was in dreamland. But she couldn't shake it off. Someone was watching. The night shattered around her as her phone rang. An unknown number flashed menacingly, and a breathless silence came through the line. Her pulse quickened. Was it a prank? Or something worse? She hung up, yet dread enveloped her like a suffocating blanket. The old house creaked and groaned, whispers of fear danced with each sound echoing in the dark. She had to convince herself it was just her imagination. Safety was within the walls, right? Persistent primal instincts clawed at her mind. She thought of Ted, her quirky neighbor whose bright smile dimmed her gut. Hesitantly, she approached him, whispering her burgeoning fears, only to be met with a smile that felt right but pierced too close. His gaze lingered, too friendly, too unsettling. Something was off. Then came the sound of gravel crunching outside. Every nerve ending pulsed with urgency. She turned, heart thrumming wildly. In a panic, Sarah darted to the window, peeking through the curtains, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. And when she saw it, an outline moving against the black void of night. A masked intruder. The glint in their eyes was sharp, cold, devouring the comfort she had built. Her breath caught like a blade in her throat. Panic erupted. She felt every heartbeat thrumming like thunder against her chest. This was not just a home invasion, it was an awakening to the truth that terror lurked behind the masked smiles of familiar faces. Suddenly, in the midst of that horror, the commercialized come and subscribe laughter danced in her brain. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah swallowed hard, the fear amplifying tenfold. The nightmare outside felt drawn to her safety, testing the very fabric of her reality. As the confrontation escalated, her heart surged with terror. The whispered rumors of the town echoed louder, dark secrets hidden behind the smiles of neighbors enjoying barbecue dinners. Nothing was as it seemed, the lines blurring between friend and foe. She was wrapped in a maelstrom of fear. The real monster was not simply lurking outside, it was woven into the fabric of daily life, cloaked in the ordinary. One solitary thought raced through her mind, grasping at a shred of hope: could she protect Jack? The question loomed larger as the intruders stepped forward, their intention drowned in the shadows of deceit. Could she fight? Or would this be the very moment her world would shatter? She was on the edge, teetering on the brink as the infinite darkness crept closer, and with it, the terrifying realization that safety might just be a fragile illusion. The intruder's movements were deliberate, slicing through the shadows with the grace of a predator. Panic flooded Sarah's veins as she froze, every cell in her body screaming for her to move. Her mind raced through possibilities. Could she escape unnoticed? What about Jack? The bond between them felt both like a lifeline and an anchor weighing her down. She had to act. Adrenaline fueled her as she glanced around the room for anything that might serve as a weapon. A lamp? Useless. A kitchen knife? Too far away. But then, Her eyes landed on the baseball bat propped in the corner. A flicker of determination coursed through her. She could do this. But as she crept toward the bat, the invader seemed to sense her movement. Their shadow lurched closer to the house, gliding towards her window. The darkened glass between them felt like a fragile barrier. Desperation gripped her heart. She couldn't let the intruder know she was awake. Forcing herself to breathe silently, she crouched low, hoping against hope that they couldn't see her in the dim light. Time stretched, each second an agonizing reminder of vulnerability. The intruder paused, just outside the window, the mask obscuring their face but betraying a hint of curiosity or maybe satisfaction. A faint sound escaped their lips, a low, dark chuckle. It twisted her stomach. Was this some sick game? She fought the urge to scream, fighting to hold on to the last remnants of sanity. Images of Ted's smile flickered in her mind, a jarring reminder of how deceptive appearances could be. Then came a sound, Jack's voice, muffled from the other room. "Mom?" Panic flared within her like wildfire. In that moment, everything shifted. The intruder, momentarily distracted, turned their attention away from her. It was a small chance, but a chance nonetheless. With every ounce of courage she could muster, Sarah seized the baseball bat and tightened her grip. Silently, she approached the door leading to the hallway. She could hear Jack's soft footsteps, almost sounding innocent. "Mom! Are you okay?" he called, unaware of the dark silhouette waiting outside. "Stay in your room, baby." Her voice was fragile but firm. As she creaked the door open, ready to make her way to Jack, the intruder returned their focus to the window. In that moment, it felt as if the air thickened and solidified, fear and anger intertwined in her chest. She was scared but fierce, but was it enough? The bat felt heavy in her hands. She took one last deep breath before stepping into the hallway, heart racing, a harbinger of chaos. The shadows seemed to dance, flickering and alive. Jack's room was just down the hall, his little frame still tucked away in bed, blissfully unaware of the darkness stalking their home. As she moved cautiously toward him, a soft scrape outside sent ice coursing through her. What if the intruder was more than just a thief? What if they had other plans? What if Ted? The thought chilled her to the bone. She had to reach Jack before it was too late. Just as she grasped the door handle, a loud crash echoed through the front of the house. It reverberated like thunder, shaking her to her core. The door splintered open, the intruder bursting through like a nightmare made flesh. Their eyes glinted with malice, and a voice came from beneath the mask, hissing, "Your turn." Fear froze her, every instinct demanding that she run. But she was rooted in place, terrified. Jack's voice rang out one last time, clearer and louder, "Mom." Would she manage to save her son, or had she walked into a trap woven from the very fabric of her worst fears? The moment hung suspended in the air, charged with adrenaline and dread, as they began to advance, closing the distance that would determine her fate. The intruder lunged forward, their movements swift and purposeful, as if they were drawn by every tremor of Sarah's heartbeat. In that ominous moment, time stood still. The weight of the bat felt like lead in her hands. She couldn't let them get to Jack, she knew that much. "Stay back!" she shouted, her voice quaking but fierce. It was a challenge, a plea, a warning wrapped in desperation. Yet the intruder paused, their head tilting to the side as if considering her defiance. "Brave little girl," they sneered, the words oozing out like poison. "How long do you think that bat will save you?" A part of her wanted to cry. A part of her wanted to scream. It was all too much, the darkness pressing against the walls, the fear cascading down her spine. She couldn't let the terror envelop her. She tightened her grip on the bat, eyes locked on the shadowy figure advancing towards her. "Jack!" she yelled again, her voice cracking. "Get out of here!" As if her words forged an invisible tether, Jack's small voice echoed through the hallway, "Mom?" The intruder halted momentarily, a flash of irritation crossing their masked face. Sarah saw her chance. With one forceful swing, she brought the bat crashing towards their knee, adrenaline fueling her strength. The hit connected, and the intruder let out a grunt of pain, but they barely stumbled. Freaking sneak! They snarled, lunging forward again. Sarah dodged sideways, breathless, heart racing as she bolted towards Jack's room. She could hear him now, soft whimpers filling the air behind his door. Forcing herself to ignore the pounding in her ears, she seized the knob and turned it. "Mom!" Jack cried, seeing her face twisted in fear as the door burst open. "Get behind me!" she urged, hurrying him back into the safety of the room. But before she could slam the door shut, the intruder was there, a muscled arm wedging itself in the frame. They smirked, that malevolent gleam in their eyes sending icy tendrils of terror through her veins. "Thought you could hide?" In an instant the intruder pushed the door wide open, sending Sarah sprawling backward onto the floor. Jack screamed, a sharp, piercing sound that shot through Sarah's heart like a bullet. She scrambled to her feet, the bat raised like a shield. "Stay away from him!" she shouted, the words barely recognizable in her own throat. The intruder stepped inside the room, a predator closing in on its prey. Jack's eyes were wide, full of fear, and for a moment, Sarah felt the knot of panic tighten around her throat. She had to protect him. "Such a nice little family," the intruder mocked, stepping closer, ignoring the bat brandished like a warning. "But families, they always fall apart." With every word, they continued to advance, unbothered by the threat of the bat. Sarah's heart raced as she swung again in a frantic arc but missed, her aim thrown off by terror. The intruder laughed, a cold, chilling sound that echoed off the walls. "Your little games won't save you." She caught Jack trembling behind her, clutching his stuffed bear like it was a lifeline. The intruder locked their eyes on him, and Sarah felt her blood run cold. "No," she whispered, desperately trying to find a way out. "No." As the intruder lunged again with increasing desperation, Sarah felt herself teetering on the edge of darkness, every instinct screaming that she was on borrowed time. And then, without warning, darkness enveloped the room, swallowing everything whole. The intruder halted mid-strike, shadows swirling unnaturally like thick fog. Confused, Sarah squinted, fighting against the darkness wrapping around her mind. A sinister voice echoed, "You've invited this terror in. Was that a threat? Or a promise?" And just like that, the darkness flared white-hot. The last thing she saw was Jack's terrified face beneath the dull glow before everything plunged back into silence, leaving only the chilling question hanging in the air: what had she awakened? The silence was deafening. A heavy stillness hung in the air, swallowing every sound, even the rhythm of her breath. Sarah blinked, straining to see through the darkness that had engulfed them. Cold fear gnawed at her core as she called out, "Jack? Where are you?" No answer came. Panic surged within her like a tidal wave. She reached out, her hands brushing against the empty air, clawing for any sign of him. The bat felt lighter now, useless in the absence of sight. A low, rumbling whisper emerged from the shadows, twisting her insides with dread. "You shouldn't have done that." Chilled to the bone, Sarah's thoughts raced. What had the voice meant? What had she awoken? The air thickened, pressing against her, leaving her gasping for breath. "Jack!" she cried again, her voice trembling. There was a shift in the darkness, a rustle that sent sparks of terror through her veins. Then she heard it, soft at first, the unmistakable sound of Jack's whimpers, a sound that cut deeper than any blade. "Mommy?" Relief flooded her, but it was quickly overshadowed by the lurking dread. "I'm here. Can you find me?" she urged him, desperately trying to locate his small figure in the inky void. "Mom!" His voice was closer now, echoing off unseen walls. With renewed determination, Sarah stumbled forward, her hands outstretching, searching for the comforting warmth of her son. Each step felt like wading through treacle, the weight of the darkness pressing against her. "Jack, stay where you are." A flash of white-hot light erupted suddenly, illuminating the room for a split second. In that instant, she saw him curled on the floor beside the bed, eyes wide with terror, his stuffed bear clutched tightly in his arms. Just as quickly as it came, the light disappeared, plunging them back into consuming darkness. "Mom!" Jack's voice grew more frantic. "I'm right here, baby." Sarah's heart raced as she lunged toward him, desperation propelling her forward. She found him, wrapping her arms around him, trembling against the softness of his body. "It's okay, I'm here. We'll get through this." The moment was short-lived. From somewhere beyond them, laughter erupted, chilling and hollow. Such sweet little words. The intruder's voice slithered through the darkness, every syllable wrapping around Sarah like barbed wire. "Get away from us!" she shouted, voice quaking. "Where do you think I am?" the intruder taunted. "You're already in my world." Jack clung to her tighter, his small body shaking. The urge to protect him swelled, merging with an emerging sense of anger. Survival swirled within, blending with terror, and suddenly she felt it, an electrical charge coursing through her veins, igniting a flicker of defiance. Sarah took a deep breath. "We will not be trapped here. You hear me?" The darkness proceeded to press against her again, threatening to reclaim her spirit. The shadows shuddered, drawing back slightly as if recoiling from her words. "Brave to test your spark," the intruder hissed. "But light can be extinguished." Sarah felt a growing heat, pulsing from the very core of her being. "Leave us alone!" she screamed. The words ricocheted through the room, and for an instant, the shadows trembled. Jack whimpered, "Mom, what's happening?" "We're fighting back." But the darkness stirred, swelling with angry pride as it closed in, wrapping tighter around them. Desperation clawed at Sarah, and she understood then that this was a game, an insidious game that preyed on fear. And in that moment, deep within the shrouded walls, something shifted. A presence, dark and ancient, began to awaken alongside her fury. "Are you ready to play?" it crooned, its voice slithering around them, leaving a lingering chill. A clash was brewing, and Sarah realized they weren't just fighting for their lives. They were stepping into a realm of terror that awaited its turn. What did they want? Were they merely intruders or something much grimmer, entities that thrived on chaos? Somewhere from deep within the encroaching shadows, the answer awaited, taunting her with the revelation that one question lingered above all: what horrors would they unleash next? The walls seemed to pulse, the shadows writhing with an ominous energy that threatened to swallow them whole. Sarah felt a primal fear surge, reminding her of every horror movie she had ever watched, where escape always slipped through the character's fingers. She clutched Jack tighter, feeling his small frame tremble against her. "Mom, it's so dark." His voice was small, a fragile thread in the chaotic depths. "I know, love," she whispered, her throat dry and raw. "But we have to be brave. Just stay close." At that moment, the shadows rippled, almost seeming to breathe. They took a step back, hesitant, and Sarah felt a momentary flicker of hope. But then the laughter returned, jagged and sharp, echoing from every angle, mocking their situation. "Oh, they think they have a chance," the voice sang, dripping with malice. "But hope is just a sweet lie, a flicker destined to fade." Suddenly, the pulse of the darkness quickened. It swelled around them, tightening as if eager to extinguish whatever flicker of courage they held. Sarah gritted her teeth, heart hammering in her chest. "Jack, can you hear me?" she said, her voice firm and steady as a rock. The noise around them dimmed slightly, blending with her determination as she fought to maintain their fragile shield. "We can't let it win." "Mom, I'm scared." "I know. I'm scared too. But we have each other." She could feel the warmth of his hand in hers, tiny and reassuring. "We need to find a way out. Focus on my voice." As if responding to her resolve, the darkness writhed again, growing louder, heavier, and closing in. The very air felt charged, electric with a strange energy, pulsing with malevolence. She felt it press upon her chest, squeezing the breath from her lungs. "Listen," the voice hissed, sounding closer now, sharper. "This world belongs to those who can endure the dark. But you, sweet creatures, you were never a part of this game." Then, a strange sensation washed over Sarah. A whisper of anger she hadn't noticed before bubbled to the surface. As fear tried to tether her, a new fire ignited within. "No more games!" she shouted, her voice cutting across the laughter. In that moment, deep within her, something resonated, a dark energy intertwining with her fear and anger, both a shield and a weapon. The shadows hesitated once more, a crack forming in their smothering grasp. Sarah pushed against them with all her might, channeling every ounce of courage. "You will not take my son." For a heartbeat, it felt as if the air shifted. The darkness recoiled as if stung, allowing a breath of light into their bleak prison. Jack clutched her hand, hope fluttering in both their chests. But the laughter returned, louder, furious. "You think that was strength? Cute trick," but the voice filled the room, threatening to shake the very foundation. "I show no mercy." The shadows surged forward again, and Sarah stumbled back, pulling Jack with her. As they fell to the floor, the world around them seemed to twist, the darkness becoming a swirling vortex, disorienting, racing into chaos. "Stay close!" she screamed, grasping Jack tighter as the walls seemed to ripple and twist into grotesque shapes. They were swallowed by the tornado of despair, and finally, a shrill cry broke from Jack's lips. "Mommy! I don't want to play." Her heart raced as she fought against the mass of shadows, terror and fury merging into one potent force. But below her increasing desperation, a question lurked, menacing and unyielding. How much longer could they endure? Just then, a flash of light more potent than before illuminated the dread-filled chamber once again. In that blinding instant, she finally saw it, the source of the shadows looming above them, and a chilling realization broke over her, freezing her blood in her veins. It wasn't just playing a game. It craved something far worse. What would it take to escape this nightmare? Would they leave with their sanity intact, or become pawns of the darkness forever? As the shadows swirled around them, an insatiable hunger permeated the air, and in the heart of the terror, Jack's terrified eyes locked onto something unseen, a truth lurking just beyond comprehension, waiting to be unveiled. What else was hidden in the folds of that darkness? The light flickered and danced, momentarily banishing the encroaching darkness. Sarah squinted, trying to make sense of the monstrous shape hovering above them. Her heart felt like it might burst, each thud echoing in the hollow, oppressive air. Jack's grip on her hand tightened, fear radiating from his small body. "What is it, Mommy?" he asked, his voice trembling. A guttural whisper curled through the air, thick with malice. "You're too late, sweet boy. The darkness already knows you. You cannot run." The shadows pulsed again, resonating like a heartbeat, wrapping tighter. They clawed at the edges of Sarah's awareness, claws of despair raking at her sanity. She felt her mind teeter on a knife's edge, each undulating wave of dark energy threatening to pull her under. "No!" she shouted, forcing the words out, a desperate plea. "We refuse to play. You don't own us." The shadows recoiled, a momentary hesitation allowing her to breathe, but an echo of laughter rang out, cold and merciless. "Rebellion only brings punishment. You will learn that soon enough." The walls seemed to pulse with life, and Sarah felt them closing in, the ceiling dropping in a sinister embrace. Panic surged in her stomach like a tidal wave. "Think, Sarah. What do we do?" Her eyes darted back and forth, searching, desperate for anything that could help them. She noticed it then flickering at the edge of the light, a glimmer reflected in the darkness. A shape, shifting, contorting. It wasn't coming from above, but from within the shadows. Something was trying to break free. "Jack, look!" She pointed, her heart racing. "There." But Jack was staring wide-eyed, transfixed, as the dark form twisted and writhed. "Mommy, it's coming for us." As if drawn by Jack's fear, the dark mass lunged forward, erupting into a slithering mass of claws and eyes. Sarah's instincts kicked in, she yanked Jack to his feet, adrenaline surging. "Run!" They stumbled forward into the receding light, fighting against the unknown terror that clawed at their backs. Each step felt heavy, as if the ground itself wanted to hold them down, keep them entangled in its grip. "Where do we go?" Jack cried, his voice drowning in the chaos, desperation filling every word. The shadows were relentless behind them, a tidal wave hungry for their fear. "Anywhere but here!" Sarah shouted, pushing through panic, her mind racing with thoughts of escape. She spotted a doorway slightly ajar, a small glimmer framing the entrance. "Over there!" she yelled. The moment they reached the doorway, something cold wrapped around Sarah's ankle, pulling her down with a sudden, brutal force. She fell, hitting the ground hard, breath knocked from her lungs. Jack tumbled beside her, fear etched onto his small face. "Mommy! Help! No!" she screamed, panic licking at her heels. Gritting her teeth, she reached for Jack, pulling him close. The shadows were close now, whispering, teasing, their voices a cacophony of dread. With every ounce of will, she pushed. "We will not be taken." Her own voice startled her, but it was a spark igniting a blaze. She felt a flicker of strength surging anew. With one powerful movement, she grasped the strength within, rising to her feet, dragging Jack up with her. "This way!" she gasped, her chest heaving, and they lunged through the doorway, colliding into a cold, concrete corridor. The air felt stale, familiar yet unsettling. Behind them, the laughter escalated, a discordant symphony of despair. "You cannot escape forever, little ones. This is just the beginning." In the hallway, dim light flickered erratically, shadows clinging to the corners. Sarah's mind raced. "We have to find a way out. Keep moving, Jack." As they stumbled into the darkness of the corridor, something cold brushed against Sarah's cheek. Whispers tickled her ears, their breath foul and rancid. "You're never alone." Sudden fear gripped her heart. There was something worse lurking in the shadows. What else was following them? Around the next corner, the air shifted. Something ancient stirred in the darkness. And in that abandoned space, they heard a voice. Softer, almost sweet, cutting through the shadows. "Come, it's safe here." Was it a trap? Or was it a chance for escape? Sarah felt Jack's small fingers tremble in hers. The shadows loomed behind, but now there was something in front of them too. What would they choose, the chilling darkness they fled or the siren call beckoning from the unknown? "Come, it's safe here." The voice slithered into Sarah's mind, tugging at her instincts. It was deceptive, cloaked in honeyed reassurance, but the chill creeping along her spine screamed caution. Jack tugged at her sleeve, the beat of his heart nearly matching her own frantic rhythm. "Mommy, I think we should go." His voice was small, filled with innocence, but so much wisdom echoed in those words. Did she trust the darkness? Or the inviting promise of safety? The shadows writhed behind them, hunger palpable as they coiled tighter, eager to drag them back into their cursed embrace. "They're not safe," Sarah hissed, fear igniting an urgency within her. "We must keep moving." Just as they took a step back, the voice called again, laced with an unshakable charm. "Don't be afraid, come closer, dear ones." A shiver cascaded down Sarah's spine, her breath quickening as a sickening realization struck. The more they hesitated, the more the shadows danced, desperate to latch onto their fear. She tightened her grip on Jack, rage mixing with terror in her gut. "No. We won't give in." They tore down the corridor, racing through the narrow passage as they felt the air grow denser, heavier, like an invisible hand pressing down on them. The dim lights flickered above, casting elongated shadows that twisted as if they had minds of their own. Each step felt like a race against death, the breath behind them growing louder. "Mommy!" Jack cried again, his voice breaking. "I'm scared." "I know, baby. Just hold on to me." Her heart raced, each frantic beat echoing the urgency in her chest. With each choice, they stood further from safety, but the voice behind still beckoned. "Turn back, it's okay, just come." Even as she ran, the tempter's call lingered, like a sickly sweet melody wrapping around her thoughts. What if they were too late? What if it was true? What if the darkness already had them? She urged Jack forward, adrenaline propelling them into the next room. "We need to hide." She spotted a closet, the shadows around it almost breathing, as if they too were alive. With a fierce push, they both scrambled inside, heartbeats crashing against each other in the confined space. The darkness enveloped them, encasing them in a stink of mildew and despair. They could hear it now, the echoes of whispers seeping through the cracks, many voices blending into one haunting symphony. "Join us, we've been waiting." Panic gripped Sarah, the hairs on her neck standing on end. "No! Leave us be!" she hissed, her body trembling as she held her breath. Jack squeezed his eyes shut, terror flickering across his small face. The voices laughed, a chilling sound that felt almost tangible. The shadows grew bolder, slithering through the cracks, reaching toward the closet. A claw brushed against Sarah's fingers. She jerked back, heart pounding. Suddenly, she remembered the glimmer, the flickering shape she had seen before they fled into the corridor. Could there be a way to use it? Could it be their salvation? As the shadows crawled closer, she whispered urgently, "Jack, we need a distraction." He was too frightened to respond, but she could feel him nodding against her shoulder. "Count to 3, and then we go out, okay? Remember, we're not their prey." They both took deep breaths, the darkness wrapping tighter, filling their lungs with dread. 1, 2. Before she could reach 3, the voices erupted into madness, screeching as if they felt the impending rupture of the spell. The shadows recoiled, twisting in terror. 3. Now! Sarah bolted forward, yanking open the closet door, and Jack followed. The corridor greeted them, the glow flickering with new urgency. She spotted the glimmer again, blindingly bright, calling to her from the far end of the hall. "Head towards it," she shouted, pulling Jack along. They ran for all they were worth, breath hitching as the darkness shrieked behind them, furious and desperate, but as they drew closer, dread coiled tight again in her stomach. What if it was a trap? What if the light led them into the arms of an even greater horror? But she could feel the echoes of her son's fear breathing down her neck. The shadows snarled, their whispers turning to screams. Go towards the light. What lay beyond that doorway might be salvation or the final end. Would they risk it? With the darkness clawing at their heels, they charged into the unknown, the hallway spinning around them. As they burst through the opening, the world exploded in blinding light. But beyond it, silence waited. What awaited them on the other side? The brightness was blinding, a stark contrast to the oppressive shadows they had fled. Sarah squinted, the light cutting sharply into her vision. She blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of where they had landed. As her eyes adjusted, fear coiled tightly in her gut. They stood in a small, stark room, walls covered in peeling wallpaper that whispered stories of neglect. An old, dusty window glimmered high above, casting a feeble beam that did little to illuminate the corners. "Mommy?" Jack's voice trembled as he stepped cautiously beside her, his small hand gripping her tightly. "Stay close," she whispered, scanning the room. Her heart raced, the pulsing blood drowning out the eerie silence. What was that sound? A faint scratching, echoing softly against the door. Goosebumps trailed up Sarah's arms. She turned her body instinctively to protect Jack. Was it just a loose board? Or something more sinister? Help, help us! The voice was faint, almost buried within the shifting shadows. Mommy, Jack's grip tightened. I don't like it here. Can we go back? Panic seized her. Back? Back through the shadows? She swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe in and out slowly. They needed to stay calm, think rationally. No, Jack. We can't go back. But where to go now? A quick survey of the room revealed nothing but dust and decay. A single door stood at the far end, slightly ajar. She approached it cautiously, her heart thumping louder with each step. Don't open it. Jack pleaded, eyes wide with fear. It might be our way out, she murmured, her hand hovering above the doorknob. But doubt crept in, cold and pervasive. What could be waiting for them on the other side? The scratching grew louder, a consistent thumping now. It felt deliberate, like a signal. A warning. With a sudden rush of determination, she turned the knob and pushed open the door. It creaked in protest, and darkness spilled into the room like a living thing. Mommy! Jack cried out, fear ricocheting within his voice. Everything seemed to pause, a stillness thickening the air around them. Then, without warning, a figure lunged through the doorway. An apparition cloaked in black, eyes shimmering with a sinister hunger. Join us, it's safe. It crooned, its voice echoing with the sickly sweetness of despair. Sarah's instinct screamed to run, and she spun around, grabbing Jack. But the figure swayed, its form pulsating, as if the shadows were wrapping around it. We've been waiting for you, no. Sarah screamed, pulling Jack close. The whispers returned, wrapping around her mind, disorienting. Not again. We won't fall for it. The ghosts of the room seemed to swirl around them, faces contorted in agony, their mouths opening and closing in a mute scream. They beckoned, urging her to listen. Mommy! Jack cried, his small voice lost amidst the chaos. With fear clawing at her throat, she yanked Jack towards the corner of the room, the only refuge available. The walls felt alive, closing in, closing them off from the outside world. She desperately searched for another exit but found none. Panic flooded her senses, the silence now ringing louder than any scream. The figure took a step closer, its smile wide and unnatural. Come stay with us. Sarah felt Jack's small body tremble, and the freezing grip of dread coalesced. What if there was no way out? What if they were trapped? Just as she scanned the corners for an escape, a glimmer caught her eye from a cracked rotting board near the baseboard. The same delicate sparkle they'd seen before. Jack! I see something. But as she turned back to him, the figure lunged. Time froze. Would they succumb to the shadows, or could that glimmer hold their salvation? Run! She shouted, grabbing Jack just as the darkness lunged. They made a break for it, dodging through the swarm of darkness. But as they reached the glimmer, everything dimmed again, swallowed whole by the shadows. In that second, a deafening roar erupted around them, echoing, vibrating through the walls. What lay beneath the fear was both hope and terror. Would they find the way out, or was the true horror just beginning? The roar reverberated, breaking the fragile silence, causing the very walls to tremble. Sarah held on to Jack, squeezing him tightly as they stumbled forward, confusion and dread slicing through her resolve. Each heartbeat echoed as loudly as the monstrous sound, drowning out any thoughts of escape. Where do we go, Mommy? Jack's little voice quaked, panic straining every word. I don't know. The truth clutched at her throat, but she couldn't let fear show. The glimmer she had noticed earlier now flickered dimly ahead, a siren call amidst the chaos. They had to reach it, rushing forward, the shadows twisted and writhed, grasping at their feet like cold hands pulling them down, trying to drag them into the depths. Sarah could almost hear their moans, drowning out her own frantic thoughts. Keep moving, Jack. Don't look back. The figure in black was still behind them, a specter of torment weaving through the dark, the hateful smile still plastered on its face. "Join us, we only want to help." Its voice was like a taunt, wrapping around them like barbed wire. They pushed harder, dodging debris and curling shadows, heart racing, instinct screaming to escape. "The glimmer, Jack. Focus on the light. Closer now." She felt a surge of desperation nudging them forward. As they neared the sparkling board, Jack suddenly stopped. "Mommy. I'm scared," he cried, eyes wide, tears glistening like the glimmer itself. Panic spread like wildfire through her chest. "Jack, look at me. We have to go now." Just as she reached for him, the darkness surged, a tidal wave of despair. Jack's eyes darted around, overwhelmed. The flickering glimmer danced tauntingly ahead, seeming to pulse with life, almost calling out to them. "Come, come to us," the figure murmured, planting seeds of doubt. "It's better on this side, no," Sarah shouted, her voice slicing through the whispers. She pulled Jack along, heart pounding, determined not to let another moment of hesitation take them. "We're not listening." She reached for the glimmer, fingers finally brushing against the rough edges of the board, a cold shock zinging through her as she tightened her grip. Suddenly, Jack screamed. Sarah froze, heart racing with fear. She turned to see Jack caught in the figure's grasp, the darkness pulling him away toward its gaping maw. "No! Jack!" Adrenaline surged, and she lunged for him, grasping his arm just as he was nearly pulled from her reach. The sensation was electric, almost painful. She yanked him back with all her might, feeling the shadows clawing at her legs, drawing her in, the whispers growing urgent and desperate, as if trying to consume them both. "Mommy! Help me!" His small voice was frantic, trembling like a leaf in the storm. "We have to," Sarah gasped, pausing only a moment before breathlessly whispering, "We can't let them take you." The glimmer pulsed brighter, illuminating the oppressive darkness around them, and suddenly, with a horrible screech, the figure recoiled, shadows snapping back as if burned. Sarah yanked Jack closer, the warmth of their connection grounding her in the chaos. "Hold on tight," she cried, her voice rising above the cacophony. The glimmer grew, a beacon of hope, enveloping them in light. Desperately, they both dove for it, surrendering to whatever lay beyond, and then everything shattered. Light exploded around them, cascading like a waterfall into the void, drowning out the darkness. The world twisted and churned, and then abruptly silence. When they emerged, a new horror unveiled itself. They were not back in their world. No peeling wallpaper, no dust, just an endless labyrinth of doors, each one dark and foreboding. "Where are we?" Jack whispered, terror lacing his voice, the urgency of their situation returning in full force. Sarah's heart sank as the childlike wonder faded from Jack's gaze, replaced by sheer disbelief. "What did we just leave?" Before she could answer, a familiar voice floated down the hall, echoing and distorted. "Help, help us," those same chilling words she'd heard before, a memory buried in shadows and echoes. "Jack," she breathed, dread pooling in her stomach. What if they followed us? Every fiber in her said to run, but the truth lingered like the stench of decay. They had escaped, but at what cost? The whispers began anew, pulling them toward an unmarked door at the end of the corridor. "Stay close," she murmured again, but the doubt had blossomed. What would wait on the other side? And was it truly safe, or was this just the beginning of their descent deeper into horror? The oppressive silence surrounded Sarah and Jack as they stood in the shadowy corridor, instinctual dread creeping back into their hearts. The memory of the sinister laughter still reverberated in her ears, an echo that seemed to cling to the walls around them. They needed a plan, they couldn't hesitate, not again. "Stay behind me, Jack," she whispered, steeling herself. "We'll find a way out. We have to." She took a tentative step forward, her blood pounding like a war drum. Each door loomed ominously as they passed, whispering their secrets through gaps in their cracks. Jack's small hand trembled against hers. "Mommy, I don't like it here." His voice became small, almost lost in the dread that swirled around them. Panic clutched at Sarah's throat, a vice tightening her resolve. They had fought through darkness before, and they would do it again. "There's light ahead," she replied, invigorated by a spark of hope. The corridor tapered ahead into a faint, glowing door, beckoning as if promising safety. "We can make it." But each passing second felt like a foreshadowing. The air crackled with tension. As they moved, the doors around them vibrated lightly, like dormant monsters awakening, their surfaces slithering with shadows. The whispers grew louder, derailing her concentration. "You're not safe not here." A sudden scream pierced through the air. Sarah felt the propelling force of fear wash over her. She turned back toward Jack, who was staring wide-eyed at one of the doors, transfixed by an unseen terror. "Jack!" she urged, just as shadows erupted from within a door he was facing, stretching thin and grasping for him. It was as if the darkness had sent out tendrils to ensnare them once more. "Run!" she screamed, pulling Jack away with every ounce of strength she had left. They dashed forward, abandoning the door that threatened to swallow them whole. The glowing door was so close now, its luminescence intensifying with every frantic step. "We need to keep moving," she urged, adrenaline surging. Jack nodded fervently, his small legs pumping with raw urgency. As they neared the door, a voice softly called from behind, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. "Stay with us, it's safe here." She shook her head fiercely, pushing against the enveloping fog. "No one is safe here. Keep going, Jack." With one final desperate push, they reached the door. Sarah flung it open, and they stumbled through the threshold, falling into blinding brilliance. A soft light enveloped them, soothing and warm, contrasting sharply with the shades of doom they had just escaped. Tentative, they emerged into a vast expanse, an emerald field under a blue sky, filled with gentle hills rolling into the horizon. "Mom?" Jack's voice was fragile with disbelief. "Are we safe?" Tears filled Sarah's eyes. They were outside. It felt real, vibrant, and undeniably safe. She turned back to the door as it began to fade, a wispy silhouette growing faint behind them. That darkness felt so far away now, but Jack, sensing something deeper, pulled on her sleeve. "What if it comes back?" A heavy weight settled in her chest. "I don't know, honey. But we need to be smart." Dread lingered, she felt it lurking at the edges of her mind. Jack stared towards the horizon, his tiny features reflecting a flicker of hope mixed with uncertainty. "What now?" "Now we find our way home," Sarah resolved, drawing strength from the brilliant colors around them. She took a breath, the cool air filling her lungs and chasing the lingering shadows. They would stay vigilant, but they wouldn't allow fear to dictate their choices anymore. As they walked forward, Sarah glanced back one last time at the door. Whatever lay behind it would always be part of their story. But they had fought back together. And whatever the future held, they'd face it as a family, united against the darkness. "Let us go, Jack," she urged, the vibrant landscape ahead flickering with newfound possibilities, and together, hand in hand, they took their first steps toward freedom, leaving the shadows behind where they belonged. Now listen up, everyone. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. We're counting on you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. You guys are the best. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us get the word out and keep the thrill alive. Get to it.